In 480 BC, in the narrow pass of Thermopylae, the Spartans stood against the vast Persian army. For freedom, for Greece, they held the line. As the sun rose over the mountains, the clash of shields and spears echoed in history. This is the moment the world remembers.
Hold your ground!
But to understand the men who stood at Thermopylae, you have to understand the city that created them, Sparta. In Sparta, a boy was not raised simply to become a man. He was raised to become a soldier. From childhood, discipline came before comfort, strength before luxury, obedience before fear. The system that shaped them was called the agoge. Years of training eventually produced the Spartan hoplite, a man trained to stand in formation, to protect the man beside him, and to hold his position when everything around him was falling apart. Because the strength of a Spartan was never meant to exist alone. It was the line that mattered. One shield protecting another, one man holding his ground because the man beside him depended on him. And eventually, among these warriors, one man would lead Sparta into the most famous stand of the Persian invasion. His name was Leonidas. But Sparta was not preparing for an ordinary enemy. Across the east, the Persian Empire was gathering its strength, and its new king Xerxes was preparing to finish what his father had begun. In 491 BC, even before the battle at Marathon, the Persian king Darius sent envoys to Sparta, demanding earth and water, symbols of surrender. But the Spartans, resolute in their defiance, cast the envoys into a stone well. This moment, stark and cold, was a refusal that echoed across history. Darius sent his army to Marathon, but the Greeks stood their ground, and Persia was defeated. Darius died before he could return. Then his son Xerxes inherited his throne and his father's unfinished war. By 480 BC, the preparations were complete. Xerxes had built bridges across the Hellespont. Now his army began its march into Europe. From the Hellespont, the Persian army marched west. Behind them was Asia. Ahead lay Greece, and standing in their path was Thermopylae. Across Greece, the news was impossible to ignore. Persia was coming. The Greek cities had to decide, fight together or fall alone.
Our lines hold the pass. The mountains will aid us. The phalanx is ready for Greece.
They needed a place where numbers meant less, and they found it at Thermopylae, a narrow passage between the mountains and the sea. Before Leonidas marched north, Sparta sought an answer from Delphi. The oracle delivered a warning. Either Sparta would be destroyed, or
Hear
its
the word
king
of the
would
oracle,
die.
Leonidas. A king's choice will forge the fate of Greece. The hot gates await. Only sacrifice can save your people.
But there was another problem. The Carnea festival had begun. Sparta's full army could not march to war. So Leonidas left with only a small force and 300 Spartans. So Leonidas chose 300, not an army, a force chosen to move while Sparta waited. Their destination was Thermopylae. Before dawn, Leonidas and his 300 left Sparta. They marched north toward Thermopylae, knowing they might never return. Days later, the mountains closed around them. Ahead lay Thermopylae, a narrow pass where Leonidas hoped to turn Persia's greatest advantage, its numbers, against itself. Leonidas found the pass exactly as he needed it. The Greeks repaired the ancient wall and prepared their position. Here, Persia's numbers would mean far less. In the narrow pass of Thermopylae, Leonidas stood with the Spartan 300 and the Greek allies who answered the call. Thespians, Thebans, Phocians, Locrians, Corinthians, 7,000 Greeks stood together, a small force but a united one, ready to make Persia pay in the narrow pass.
The great king demands your
Xerxes
submission.
gave them
Lay
one
down your
final
arms,
choice:
and you will be spared.
lay down their weapons
Refuse,
and
and you will be
submit to
destroyed.
Persia. Leonidas' answer was simple: they would stay. Then the waiting ended. Persian troops advanced into the pass, expecting their numbers to overwhelm the Greeks. But Thermopylae gave Leonidas exactly what he needed: a battlefield too narrow for Persia to use its strength. Wave after wave came forward, but only a few Persians could reach the Greek line at once. The hoplites held their formation, and the Persian attack began to stall. Xerxes watched the attack fail. The Greeks were still holding, so he sent in the Immortals, his elite 10,000. Then Xerxes committed the Immortals. 10,000 elite Persian infantry moved toward the pass. Behind them came the vast machinery of the Persian army: men, horses, supplies, and even elephants from the empire's eastern lands. But at Thermopylae, numbers alone would not be enough. Now the Immortals entered the pass. Persia's finest soldiers advanced where the first waves had failed, but the narrow ground offered Leonidas the same advantage. Only a fraction of Persia's strength could reach him at once. Even the Immortals could not break the Greek line. Wave after wave crashed into the narrow pass, and each time the Greeks drove them back. The Persian advantage in numbers had become almost useless. Thermopylae had turned Persia's greatest strength into its greatest weakness. But Thermopylae had another weakness, not in its walls, but in the hearts of men. A local Greek named EPHIALTES saw an opportunity. He knew of a mountain path that could lead the Persians around the Greek defenses, and he decided to reveal it. For his own gain, EPHIALTES was about to betray the men defending Greece. EPHIALTES had revealed the secret path. Now, under cover of darkness, Persian troops followed him into the mountains. Below, the Greeks remained unaware. The trap was closing. Near dawn, the Phocian guards heard movement in the mountains. Persian troops had found the path. Caught by surprise, the Greeks rushed to prepare for an attack, but the Persians kept moving toward the rear of Thermopylae.
King Leonidas, the Persians have crossed the mountain path. They are behind us now.
The news changed everything. The Persians were no longer attacking from the
Persian
front.
force
They
approaches
were
from
coming
the
from
mountain.
behind.
We could
The
withdraw
Greeks
along
now
the
faced a
road.
choice: withdraw
Thermopylae
or
must
stay
be
and
held.
fight. Leonidas had made his decision. The larger Greek force would withdraw, but someone had to remain behind. Leonidas and his Spartans would stay, joined by the Thespians, who refused to leave. With the Persians closing in from both sides, the remaining Greeks formed their final line. There would be no retreat now.
For the king! ATHENS! Crush the Greeks! For Persia, charge!
Then the two armies collided. Persian shields crashed against Greek bronze. Spears drove forward as the narrow pass erupted into chaos. But the Greek line did not break. Instead, the Spartans pushed forward. The Persian front ranks were forced backward, and the narrow pass became a killing ground. But Persia was not finished. The Immortals regrouped and attacked again. Spears broke against shields and armor. Soon the Greeks were fighting at sword range. But the battle had changed. The Persians were closing in from both sides. The Greeks were surrounded, and Leonidas knew the end was near. Then Leonidas fell. The Spartans fought desperately to recover his body. Around their fallen king, the final resistance continued. Then the Persian archers raised their bows. Arrows darkened the sky. The last Greek defenders prepared to meet their end. At last, the final Greek resistance was broken. Thermopylae had fallen. The Persians now controlled the pass. Thermopylae was lost. But the news of Leonidas's death spread across Greece. The Persian army had won the pass, but the war was far from over.
Thermopylae has fallen. The Persians are advancing. We must decide how to respond.
The stand at Thermopylae was over. The land was lost, but the battle for Greece would not end there. Now, the fate of their world would be decided on the waters of Salamis.